Hi, Dan Hazel here from Cut Through Coaching and Consulting. One of the biggest issues that we're finding when we're working with clients, particularly when these clients are middle leaders, when they're between sort of, the top leadership of the organization and everybody else, is the notion of how to have a difficult conversation. How to have a conversation which needs to address a behavior or something that hasn't happened or a relationship issue or whatever it might be. How do we have those conversations? And because not too many people know how to have those conversations, they tend to fall into doing different things. The first thing is they'll try and not have those conversations. They'll try and avoid it. And some of the reasons for that can be as simple as, well, a few months ago, they weren't the middle leader, they weren't the middle management, they were a colleague of the person who they now need to speak with. But because of that relationship change or the hierarchical change in the organisation, tensions have been a bit frayed. And so the last thing they want to do is now have another difficult conversation. So some people tend to avoid it and just hope that it sort of organically the issue gets resolved or goes away or gets forgotten about. At the other end of the spectrum, when people don't know how to have a difficult conversation, is that they over prepare. They spend all weekend thinking about it, talking about it, going online, finding blog articles, whatever it might be, and they might, by over preparing, almost undermine their efforts when it comes to actually sitting down with their colleague. So very quickly, I want to just outline the three, what we've seen as being some of the most common, three of the most common things that people do almost unwittingly when going into a difficult conversation. The first one is that we think we know what the other person's thinking. We think we know what their intentions are. We think we know that they're deliberately out to get us or undermine us or, plead their case or whatever it might be. And of course, when we spend all weekend preparing with those intentions in mind, it then biases, it sort of, knocks everything off kilter. Which leads into the second most common mistake, is that people sometimes end up scripting that conversation. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it this way, I'm going to say it at this point in the conversation. They know what they're going to say, when they're going to say it, how they're going to say it. And whilst scripts work really well if you are putting on a play or a production or any kind of performance, typically scripts aren't that good in what should be a fairly organic, responsive conversation, reacting to what the other person is bringing to that space. So rather than a script, we probably need to think more along the lines of having a path, a path of the conversation, one in which we're going to first ascertain, I guess, well, what is the issue here, and what are your thoughts on this, and these are my thoughts on this, and how do we then come up with a solution that means we can both walk out of this and move forward, where one doesn't feel disrespected or slighted, or one doesn't feel like, there's a winner and there's a loser to all this. Which then brings us into that third one, which, because we've compounded it by thinking we know what it is the other person's thinking, and then we overscript things, and that script usually directs us to a point where we're going to feel that we want to win this conversation. To be clear, the goal of a difficult conversation is not to win it, because if you win it, by definition, the other person must have lost it. And if they lose, when people feel that they've lost something, whether it's feeling valued or respect or credibility, then it's pretty likely that the overall outcome down the track of that conversation will be relatively negative for that ongoing working relationship. Assuming, of course, they'll just leave. But assuming that they stay in the workplace, it's unlikely that that's going to continue to be a productive relationship once you've established there's a winner and the loser. So by making sure that the goal of the conversation is actually we both walk out of here feeling that we've both been heard, we've both been valued. It's not to say that behaviour isn't going to change on that, but making sure that it's a win-win as much as possible for the two parties in that difficult conversation. So those three things: don't think you know what other people are thinking, don't overscript, and don't lose sight of the fact that the goal is not to win the conversation, but for both of you to walk out in a win-win situation. Hope that was useful. If it was, let us know in the comments. If it wasn't, let us know in the comments. Feel free also to subscribe to the Cut Through Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. And of course, you can contact us anytime at cutthroughhq.com. But until next time, take care, take it easy.